Hello, everybody. So I only get a bit of time for myself in here, so I get to make a front-facing video. You get to see my face. Hey. Yeah. So what I'm going to choose to do to talk about today is the position of Sam Konstas. So as a lot of people know, Sam Konstas was put into the Australian team for the fourth test against India. So was the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the MCG. And of course, he ramped Jasprit Bumrah, which shocked a lot of people. Instant fame, made a massive impression on a lot of people, particularly a lot of young people. But then by the time of the fifth test, so his second, we had a commentary by Ricky Ponting, who used to be the Australian captain and was commentating, who said Constas needs to learn to turn those 20s into centuries. Now, based on that, a lot of people have said, oh, Sam Constas isn't test level. And curiously, there's been a lot of support for Nathan McSweeney, who abysmally failed in his first three tests. We've got to say, I mean, his top score was 36, and that was he was dropped four times as part of that. He was, I mean, he was very lucky to get an average of 14. He probably should have, if he hadn't been so lucky, he would have probably averaged more like six or seven, and it was clearly nowhere near test level. And people said, "Oh, well, he's not an opener, so that's fair enough." Okay, and he did well in Shield cricket. Well, he has done in the last couple of years, but his start of his Shield career was not very good. So there's been a lot of people defending Nathan McSweeney and attacking Sam Constas, which is really weird. Considering Constas did really well, and Ricky Ponting has gone on air and said, "Why were they dropping him for the Sri Lankan test?" I mean, he got sent to Sri Lanka, but then didn't play. First, they were going to have him open and have Travis Head maybe switch to move up the order later on, and then he's not playing. So, what really went on? Well, there's been a lot of speculation about this. A lot of people have said, well, he's just not test level, he's just not good enough, and they refer to the Ricky Ponting comment. And Ricky Ponting didn't really say it, or at least not in the way that that meant, because what Ricky Ponting was actually meaning by what he said, and Ponting has clarified this quite clearly. What he really meant was he was saying, well, this is a guy who should be averaging 50 in Test cricket. So in other words, he's saying Sam Constas, in terms of his ability, has the potential to be one of the greatest players ever to play the game. Now, he might not be the best. We don't yet know. We don't know if he's going to be at the level of the Fab Four that they have right now, which is Steve Smith, Virat Kohli, Kane Williamson, and Joe Root. We don't know if he's going to be at that level, but he has that potential to, if not be at that level, then be perhaps the level below, which is, your Alan Bordage, your Matthew Haydens, your really, really, really good players who are considered to be all-time greats, and that's the level that he has the potential to do. And he was saying, well, what Ricky Ponting was saying was that what Sam Constas did wrong, and I for one agree with him, is that he got to 20, did all the hard work to get to 20, and then just threw his wicket away, which is a bit of a Mark Waugh thing. If people who were following cricket in the early 1990s would have noticed that Mark Waugh would always get to a century and get out pretty much the next ball. He very rarely got more than 100, at least in Test cricket, and that's kind of the issue for Sam Constas. But obviously, a low-scoring series with difficult batting conditions and against Jasprit Bumrah, who was at the peak of his powers, and I don't think anyone's ever been better than that, but a few others I think have been at the same level. We have to say, averaging 28 was pretty good. He did really well, and I don't think you certainly can't say that he failed, particularly if you're saying on the same hand Nathan McSweeney succeeded when he averaged 14 and looked abysmal. You can't, someone averaged 28 and looked great. It's probably really worth an average of 56. We've got to say, considering the difficult batting conditions. And then someone averaged 14 that was probably worth about a six. There's no scenario in which you can argue Nathan McSweeney is better than Sam Constant, and yet people are doing that. Now, the same people who are doing that have said a lot of other things wrong. They've said, "Oh, McSweeney, he's the best thing in the world," and then they've said, "Oh, Constance, he got in on a BBL match." And there are people that consistently say things that are objectively wrong. So I try not to listen to them, but yet they keep popping up, and you keep going, "Okay, You guys don't know what you're talking about. I mean, the people that actually do know what they're talking about are not saying that at all. The people who do know what they're talking about agree that Nathan McSweeney failed. And in fact, getting 3 tests is probably more than he deserved. And had we given him all 5 tests, I don't think Australia would have won the series. We've got to just be honest there. Had McSweeney got all 5 tests, we wouldn't have won the series. Not only that, had Sam Konstas come in the first test, we probably would have won that test as well. So it would have been a 4-0 scoreline instead of what it ended up being, which was a 3-1. Now, would we have won Brisbane with Sam Konstas in there? I don't think so. So I think the Brisbane situation was a combination of rain and Josh Hazlewood's injury. I think had we played Scott Boland instead of Josh Hazlewood, we would have won the Brisbane test. Because Hazlewood was injured. Nothing wrong with Hazlewood. He's a great bowler, but he was injured. He came in with an injury, bowled, I think, 6 overs and then collapsed and didn't bowl again. And we needed an extra bowler. But even with Scott Boland, we might not have won because there was a lot of rain. But that was our biggest chance. It wasn't actually McSweeney that cost us that match. McSweeney cost us the Perth test. Let's not beat around the bush there. And also, I have to say that while McSweeney cost us the Perth test, Konstas won us the Melbourne test. Now, I know Smith's got a century and the whole top 4 got half centuries. So we also had half centuries to Kawaja and Labuschagne. But without that Konstas start, that 60 off 63 balls, I think it was, 65 balls, without that start, the others wouldn't have succeeded because they've been failing the first 3 tests. They wouldn't have managed to get the sort of score that we got. So if you'd had McSweeney in the 4th test in Melbourne, Australia would have lost. I'm not saying a draw, we would have lost. And that would have put India ahead 2-1. And then would we have won Sydney if we still had McSweeney? I don't think so. I mean, okay, we won Sydney because Bumrah got injured. But I think if you had McSweeney for all 5 tests, Australia, yeah, we still would have won 1 test, but it would have been 1-3. India would have won 3 tests, won the Border Gavaskar Trophy, probably qualified for the World Test Championship final, and we wouldn't have. So that's it. You really got to look at that properly and say the difference between Konstas and McSweeney was 2 wins versus 2 losses. And, you know, I mean, Melbourne and Sydney are not our best grounds. Certainly not against India. They are worst, probably our worst 2 grounds against India. Okay, we might have still won Sydney even with McSweeney, maybe, as long as we've got Bumrah out injured. But it was close. That was close. Both tests were close. And I think it's sort of maybe we still win Sydney. Maybe we still win Melbourne. I don't think we're going to winning Melbourne. I don't think we're winning Melbourne with McSweeney. Now, could we have won with someone else other than Konstas? But this is the thing. There's no doubt in an objective scenario. There's no doubt that Konstas should have played in Sri Lanka. Now, another thing besides the Ponting claim is the claim which was not what Ponting meant. They twisted his words, and he was horrified that Konstas was not opening in Sri Lanka. But the other scenario is that they said, well, he can't play in the subcontinent, and he can't play spin bowling. He's never played in the subcontinent, so we don't know. He might be good, he might be bad. We don't know. And as far as him playing spin bowling, this is based on he couldn't handle the spinners, is what they say. But Ravindra Jadeja, yeah, he got his wicket in the first test, in the first innings. But he got out to fast bowlers for the other 3 innings. So we're saying, okay, against spin bowlers, he's going to get 60 off 65 balls and then get out? Because he gifted his wickets in the other three innings. That's what Ponting said. He said, well, he did all the hard work and then gifted his wickets because he got out to fast bowlers, the other 3. Well, there were 3 different bowlers. I think one was Bumrah, yeah. One was Mohammad Siraj, and the other one was that new guy, one of the other ones that came in the 5th test. So he and then gifted his wicket. So those 3, besides Jadeja, the other 3 were him getting himself out, which was what Ponting was frustrated about because he's saying if he batted properly, he would have probably got centuries. And the 60, he was out. It was out to Jadeja. So based on that, they're saying, well, he's no good against spin. best on one out. Got out once in 4 innings to spin. Not like he got out to spin 4 times in a row. If he got out to spin 4 times in a row, I'd go, oh, I've got weakness against spin. Because there are players that are weak against spin. I remember Ricky Ponting used to be weak at the start of his innings against left arm spin, particularly from part timers. So we had Kevin Peterson, didn't even bowl very often. So left arm spinner was able to get Ponting out early. And so you'd have teams, they'd work that out and they'd say, oh, well, let's play a spin bowler who doesn't normally bowl very often. Make sure they're left armed. They're going to get Ponting out. And that was a known weakness. Konstas doesn't have a known weakness to spin, right? So he might be bad at spin. We don't know. We just do not know. So why are we bashing on Konstas so much? Is it the McSweeney brigade? The people who I don't think really like McSweeney, but they were just so wrong about McSweeney that they need to back it up by bashing Konstas. Is that the group that was clearly wrong about McSweeney and they continue to be wrong, but they just won't shut up? Are they the people that are bashing Konstas, or is this something else? There was an article in the Daily Mail, which is an English tabloid, and it said the one person who didn't like Konstas's effort in the Melbourne Test, and you read a bit further, and Mitchell Stark is being interviewed, and he says it's Steve Smith. The only person, apparently all other players loved it. They loved his approach. They loved how good he was. They loved how much it excited the team and it led them all to doing better. The only one who didn't appreciate it was Steve Smith. Now, Steve Smith got a century in the Melbourne Test, and that ended up being the start of his run. Or actually, I think that was the second. The third Test, he also got a century. So it was a big part of his run of suddenly being in good form. So Konstas, in a lot of ways, got Smith into good form. Head did too, and I'm sure he did his own bit. But part of that was Konstas. So why is Smith criticising Konstas? There was no explanation in the article, and perhaps if I was going to speculate, I'd say, well, Smith is saying, he wants to be credited himself for getting his own runs. He doesn't want to give the credit to Konstas. And also, of course, people in the third test had said, oh, well, that was Travis Head getting Smith back into form. And Smith's like, let's get back into form. So I think that a part of that was that. And I think maybe he just didn't like how quickly he was scoring, didn't like that he's antagonised Bumrah and all that sort of thing. But anyway, whatever the reason why Smith didn't like him, it's clear he didn't like him. And then we went to Sri Lanka and Smith was named the captain because Pat Cummins is doing some personal thing. And now we find out he's injured anyway. Well, I suppose he only finds out he's injured when he's not playing anymore. He goes, oh, obviously I'm injured. But I mean, I think sometimes you have niggles and you're not aware of them until you stop playing for a while and then you go, oh, I'm injured. So, bottom line is, that makes sense that's why Konstas went on the site, went over there. In other words, the selectors wanted to pick Konstas, but Smith didn't want him to. So it was Smith's idea to not have Konstas. And then they started making all this nonsense up about why he's not playing. It wasn't actually because he can't play in Asia. He's never played in Asia. In fact, I remember when they said that Usman Khawaja can't play in Asia. That was a thing going around for a while. And I always thought, why can't he play in Asia? He was born in Pakistan. It's in Asia. Surely he can play in Asia. And it turned out that was a load of nonsense. And Khawaja now averages 80 in Asia, the highest average out of anyone who's scored more than 1,000 runs, at least for Australia, possibly out of any country not Asian. So clearly can play in Asia. And I think Sam Konstas, look, I don't know. Maybe he can't play in Asia, but they've got no evidence. Unless he went in the nets and they're like, oh, geez, you're just not managing it. Maybe. But, and I mean, unless he was up against all the three of the Australian spin bowlers that they picked and he's getting out to Kuhnemann and Lyon and Todd Murphy all the time. Unless that happened, I tend to think that the reason he didn't play was because of Steve Smith. Because Steve Smith's gone, I don't like the guy. And they're like, oh, but he's doing all this. I don't like the guy. And I mean, I know that the captain isn't the only one that makes the decision, but I think that they've just gone along with that and just gone, well, it's not the worst thing. Maybe we'll try out a few new players. And they've tried Josh Inglis. And look, Josh Inglis, I think it is good to give him a debut now. He's already played ODIs and T20s and he's taken over from Alex Carey in a lot of ways. And I think, and I criticise Inglis for his poor glove work, and I think that he's going to be more of an ODI and T20 specialist because I think in the shorter formats you can tolerate a keeper that's not that good a keeper as long as they bat really well. But in tests, I think you have to play the best keeper, and I think that's the difference. So if you've got somebody that is a good batsman, a really good batsman, but not that good a keeper, I think you can tolerate them in ODIs because you often, the keeper's just there to collect the ball. They're not really there to take catches, not that much, not in ODIs. They're just there. You need someone behind the stumps to stop it going for four every time someone bowls a ball. So you need to have a keeper, but you can put anyone there, and you may as well get the best batsman that can keep, that at least has some basic knowledge of it. And I think that's why someone like a Josh Inglis can thrive in ODIs. But in tests, you need to have your best keeper because it becomes really important because tests are wearing people down. You're not getting wickets from you know being defensive. Or I suppose sometimes you might, but it's not. The game is different. And in T20, of course, you not only want the best batsman, you want the best striker because your wicketkeeper is expected to score strike rate 150 or more. And so in ODIs, you don't have necessarily that massively high strike rate requirement. So you could potentially have three different players. You can have your best keeper is the one that's in tests. In ODIs, it's the one that's the best batsman who knows how to keep. And in T20s, it's the one that is the best striker who knows how to keep. And knowing how to keep it isn't that important in ODIs or T20s. Just have to have anyone there, as long as they're not completely fumbling the ball and letting it just go to the boundary every time the ball's bowled. As long as they're doing that, they're doing their job. They don't have to take any catches unless they're just coming straight for them. So you often find in ODIs and T20s you have people who aren't proper keepers that are still even in national sides. I mean, Phil Salt, I don't think he's a normal keeper. And he was keeping wicket for England in, I think, was that a T20 or an ODI, one of the two. So Josh Inglis, I'm nervous about him being Australia's test keeper because I don't think his keeping is that quality at this stage. He might develop that. I mean, I remember Tim Payne for a very long time was not a test level keeper, but he was an ODI and T20 keeper, but he changed his game. And towards the end of his career, that little patch where he was Australian test keeper and captain, he was actually a good keeper. So players can change, and there's every chance that Josh Inglis could develop into a proper test level keeper. But at this stage, I don't think he is. And I think Alex Carey, I was looking at his stats in 2024, he was the best keeper in the world. And I mean, that's not having a go at some of the others, but Rishabh Pant is also doing very well, and he bats too. And it's always very subjective, and people ignore stats and manipulate stats. For keepers, it's more subjective than anyone else. So I try to be as objective as possible with it. But a lot of people say, "Oh no, forget the stats. Just look at your eyes. Look at how good they are," and then they invariably focus on the batting stats because they're ignoring the keeping stats. But anyway, so I think that Josh Inglis will eventually replace Alex Carey in tests. Now he's 3 years younger, so that suggests Inglis is only going to get 3 years of test cricket. 3 years is a long time. I think giving him a debut was fair, and while it's a bit awkward playing him as a batsman when he wants to be known as a keeper, I think that was good. And as it turned out, the scenario was Australia were 3 for 400 or 3 for 396 or something when he came out to bat against a Sri Lankan team that wasn't trying. And it was pretty much as easy a situation as you could get. And he got a century. Look, he's still got a century. You've got to get that century. But I always talk about easy runs and hard runs. And there's easy wickets and hard wickets too. You look at the scenario and you look at that scenario and you say, was that century worth a century? And you'd say, compared to your average match, no. I mean, if you had him go in against Jasprit Bumrah at 3 for 30 in conditions that are just going crazy with Jasprit Bumrah bowling time of his life, would he have got a century off 90 balls? Really unlikely. Would he have got a century off 90 balls playing the way he did? I mean, he probably would have got 3 or 4, but who knows? We don't know. It's hard to know how he would have done, but we do know that this was a very easy batting condition. Not just the pitch, the bowlers, but also the match situation. It was very easy. And that is in a lot of ways padding his average. And I think that was the case for all the batsmen. And unfortunately, Marnus Labuschagne still failed in spite of that. I mean, yeah, Khawaja still got a double century, but I think if he got a double century against Bumrah, it would have been much more impressive. And Travis Head's batting effort against Bumrah was amazing, some of the best batting you'll ever see, at least for the first three tests. His batting effort against Sri Lanka was nowhere near as impressive, even though, look, he still got a 50 and that helped inspire the rest of the team. So I think that Inglis, yes, it was good for him that he got his debut. He's got that out of the way. Tick. And he got a century. That'll People will forget the scenario in time. They'll just look at that and go, "Oh, we got a century on debut. What a great player!" And that'll help him. Is that worth it to sacrifice Sam Konstas for that? Probably not. But look, and then we saw in the second test Cooper Connolly play, and that was I mean, this is still ongoing, and that was at the expense of Todd Murphy. And now Cooper Connolly is not a bowler; he's a batsman who occasionally bowls a little bit. And look, I was all for Cooper Connolly playing. In fact, I'd rather Cooper Connolly get a debut than Josh Inglis because Josh Inglis, I think, is inevitably going to be playing. We don't know with Cooper Connolly. So I would have rather played Cooper Connolly in the first test rather than the second. Give Cooper Connolly that easy scenario, see what he can do. If he can't get a century there, Inglis did. If Cooper Connolly was batting at 5 instead of Inglis in that first test and failed to get a score, if he got out for 15, I would say, all right, Cooper, you've gone, we're going to bring you back in 12 months or whatever. That might be the end of his career. But they didn't bring that. They brought Inglis in. I think that was very little value in bringing Inglis in. And then when they had Cooper Connolly in the second test, which is a great move, he was playing as a bowler, and he's not a bowler. And I think when you bat at number 8, you play like a number 8. Steve Smith started batting at number 8 in the Test League when he was a normal number 4, number 5 for New South Wales. What the hell? This was the same situation that they did to Cooper Connolly, and he played like a bowler. He batted like a bowler. He didn't look good. Like, oh, he got a good four. Yeah, better than Nathan McSweeney's first hit, which was an edge that nearly got him out, but raced the boundary for a four. Yeah, it was a better score than that. But he looked hopeless. And this was in a match where Australia were doing really well. They had a good score on the board. He didn't really have any pressure on him, and he still got out cheaply. So, and I know it's a small sample size, but I think Cooper Connolly failed. It's good to know. But he probably won't get a second innings. And so this is really quite unfair on Cooper Connolly because if you'd given him the first test and he failed, I think, yeah, and you might have given him the second test because why not? And he would have been playing in his proper position and you would have had fair assessment of him. And if you'd failed in both, you would have said, all right, Cooper, sorry, mate, you're probably not going to want to play. We're probably not going to want you for another year or so. We'll see how you go the next year and then we'll consider you. And that's what they would have done. And now he's played one innings, got four. And we really have to say the same thing. We can't play him after this. Not after that effort. I mean, I know they're talking about, what's Nathan McSweeney doing in this squad? I mean, they're saying, okay, but how is he the next best batsman? And the thing is, he's failed at test level. When you fail at test level, you put in that little box that says not test level. Can't handle the pressure. I know you can say, oh, but Jasper Bumrah. Well, why are you putting that for Sam Konstas? Sam Konstas succeeded. Nathan McSweeney failed. Cooper Connolly failed too. We're going to say Nathan McSweeney, Cooper Connolly, both failed at test level. We've got to put them in the category where we say, okay, they both failed. We're not going to try them again for 12 months. And they have to really prove themselves at the lower level before we'll look at them again. Nathan McSweeney should not have been on that squad. Cooper Connolly should have. Absolutely deserved it. And we should have probably had Cooper Connolly for both tests. And that was the only justification for getting rid of Sam Konstas. There was no reason to put Josh Inglis in there. Unless you're saying, oh, Inglis, hey, mate, look, we love you. Just as a show of good faith, we're going to put you in. Didn't need to have that. He knew that he is the next keeper for Australia. He didn't need to have that. And you're stuffing up Sam Konstas. And, I mean, Sam Konstas apparently went, oh, no, I understand, mate. No worries. What did he understand? What they say? Steve Smith hates you. Oh, no worries. I understand. I get it. Smithy hates me. No worries. Or were they saying, mate, we don't think you can handle spin? What is that? Oh, no worries. I know I can't handle spin. Well, that's not true. But I reckon he was told, Smithy doesn't like you. And he said, no worries, I understand. Once Cummins comes back, I'll be in the team. Is that what they told him? Or did they say, I can't play in Asia? He says, played in Asia. So if they'd said to him, you can't play in Asia, he said, I played in Asia. If they said to him, yeah, you can't handle spinning, he'd say, no, I'm good at spinning. Or if they'd said to him, mate, you're not converting 20s into centuries, he would have said, yeah, okay, fair enough. He might have said okay with that, except that Pontings said he didn't mean that. But if they've said Smithy doesn't like you, I think that's what they said. And I think that's what happened. I think that's what the reality is. And I mean, I remember back to Pakistan's days, and a lot of people weren't aware of this at the time, but Wasem Akram and Waka Yunus didn't like each other. And Wasem Akram was the captain, and he bowled really well with Waka Yunus. They were like an amazing opening bowling partnership. But Wasem Akram said, I don't like Waka Yunus. He's not playing. So whenever Wasem Akram was captain, Waka Yunus didn't get to play. And they're still angry with each other. We've had feuds within teams before. I mean, I've talked about how David Warner and Mitchell Starc had a feud. I don't think they ever resolved it. And and I could get into this into another video, but that was a large reason why Warner got banned. A lot of people think it was the ball tampering, it wasn't. It was mostly Mitchell Starc. And I mean, I have a bit of an update on that, and I might do another video on that, but suffice to say, yeah, Sam Konstas, I think he got done dirty, pretty badly dirty. But look, when we look into it, we did get to have all these debutants, which is great. We get to see what they've done. I mean, does Josh Inglis's century add to him? Don't really think so. Did we learn much about Cooper Connolly and him getting a four and then getting out? Probably learned he's probably not really ready quite yet, but it's a small sample size. Did we learn anything much by having Bo Webster debut? I mean, I still don't think that Bo Webster's ahead of um, Cameron Green. And when Green comes back, I don't think there'll be a spot for Bo Webster. But you never know. I mean, it's good to have that extra option. I think Bo Webster's been the most impressive of them. But look, you know, that's adding with not just his debut, but his two tests in Sri Lanka. And I think Bo Webster's becoming more valuable. And I think it will be a tough choice. I actually think that both will play. I think Green and Webster will play once Green's back. And I don't think there's a problem with having two players who can bowl who are batting in the middle order at 5 and 6. I don't think Cooper Connolly will play in the World Test Championship final, so that'll be our next test after this. So, in fact, while I'm here, I'll go with what I think is my best team for there. So, I think I'm still having Usman Khawaja batting. He's just scored a double century. Sam Konstas is batting with him. Now, we're having Travis Head, we're having Steve Smith. Those two are both playing, no question. Who else is playing? Bo Webster, as I said, is probably going to play. And Cameron Green, if he's fit, is playing. Now that leaves us with the choice, Marnus Labuschagne or Cameron Green. I think it's going to be a tough one. Green wasn't doing that well before he got injured. We won't know if he's recovered enough. And I think the third option is Josh Inglis. So we will have that three players going for one spot. And those three players will be Marnus Labuschagne, Cameron Green, and Josh Inglis. If everyone's fit, I think Cameron Green will play. If there is a fitness issue about Cameron Green, it will be that toss-up. And you've got the long-term skill of Marnus Labuschagne. Only a couple of years ago, he was number one player in the world versus the newcomer of Josh Inglis, and we just saw him get a duck. So he's got a century and then a duck. I mean, I know he was injured, he had back spasms, but maybe Marnus Labuschagne still plays. And I think that is going to be the tough battle. That spot is going to be the tough spot. Sam Constant's playing. Every day of the week he's playing. I'm not moving Travis Head into open and leaving Konstas out so that we can fit in Inglis and Labuschagne or Inglis and Green or Green and Labuschagne. Uh, there's no way Sam Constance is missing out of the World Chess Championship final. I think that would be absurd. But if Steve Smith's captain, that might be what happens. And it is unfortunate there is politics in sport, and then we lie about it, and then people get convinced by the lies because they think, oh, this is a guy that can't play Test cricket. But that's not what Ricky Ponting said. He said he should be converting 20s into centuries. It's not. It's not that he can't play Test cricket. It's that he should be doing better. Different issue. It's not that he can't play spin. He got out once to a spin bowler. Different issue. Not that he can't play in Asia. Never been to Asia. Different issue. So we've talked about one issue and made it seem as if it was a different issue. Now that doesn't mean that Sam Constance is definitely going to be our player for the next 10 years or 15 years or however long it is. We don't know yet. He's had a good first two tests. We don't know how he's going to go beyond that. It would have been good to have known in Sri Lanka how well he was going to go. If he failed, then we probably would have looked at dumping him. But he didn't even get a chance. He got dumped before he had a chance to fail. And that's a big problem. So we now have that question mark over Sam Constance, not because he's done anything wrong, but because of this poor selection in Sri Lanka. And the other problem is Usman Khawaja is probably going to retire soon. He's 38. Will he play till he's 40? Maybe. Some players have. And we don't have any real openers to contend with. Are we going to go with Nathan McSweeney and Sam Constance opening together? I don't like the idea of Nathan McSweeney opening. Or do we make it Travis Head and Sam Constance as our permanent openers? Head doesn't want to open. I think that's going to be difficult to push. We could do that, but it's going to be hard. And I think we do need to have another opening option. I don't know, I don't care who it is. I'd even rather have another opener, whoever it is, let's say Henry Hunt, have opened in Sri Lanka with Usman Khawaja rather than have Travis Head opening. I saw no benefit for the future for Travis Head opening, no benefit for the present. Travis Head didn't want to open. Why were we making him? He was a good player in the middle order. Why not let him stay there? It was almost man of the series in the against India in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. He won two man of the match awards playing at number 5. Why are you now making him open? You see, and I think this does stem from the ball tampering. This was an issue. Yeah. Look, that's it from me. Let me know what you think. Do you think that Sam Constas was done dirty, or do you think Daily Mail, Mitchell Stark, the whole thing was wrong? Daily Mail lied, Mitchell Stark lied, taken out of context. Have I joined the dots in the wrong way? Maybe. Maybe I have. I mean, they never said officially that's why Constas was out, but it looks like it. Looked like it to me. Looks like it to me that this was a personality clash. This was a Steve Smith deciding, don't like the guy, and he's out. And was Steve Smith right? Well, Australia's winning, so therefore he was right, isn't he? Anyway, that's it from me. Bye bye now.